Billionaire was cold and never trusted anyone, until he saw his ex caring for their baby all night in hospital. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Oh, and make sure to follow our channel for more stories like this. Now, sit back and enjoy every detail. Sebastian Ward sat in the leather chair of his corner office, staring at the skyline of Manhattan as the sun dipped below the horizon. At 36, he had everything most men dreamed of: a billion-dollar empire in medical technology, a penthouse that overlooked Central Park, and a reputation that made investors tremble with anticipation. But tonight, none of it mattered. His phone buzzed for the fourth time in 10 minutes. He glanced at the screen. Nanny, Maria. His jaw tightened as he answered. Mr. Ward, Theo's fever isn't coming down. It's been at 103 for 2 hours now. I gave him the medicine, but I'm on my way. Sebastian didn't wait for her to finish. He grabbed his coat and stormed out, leaving behind a conference room full of executives mid-presentation. The drive to his Tribeca townhouse felt eternal. His knuckles were white against the steering wheel, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios he'd never allow himself to consider in boardrooms. Control was his language. Uncertainty was not. When he burst through the front door, Maria stood in the foyer, cradling Theo in her arms. The baby's cheeks were flushed crimson, his tiny body limp against her shoulder. His whimpers were weak. Defeated, Sebastian's heart dropped. How long has he been like this? His voice was sharper than he intended. Since this afternoon. I thought it was just teething, but Maria's eyes were glossy with worry. Mr. Ward, I think we need to take him to the hospital. He reached for his son, and Theo's small fingers curled weakly around his thumb. The baby's skin was burning. Sebastian had faced hostile takeovers, patent wars, and congressional hearings without flinching. But this terror was something entirely different. Get my car ready. We're going now. The emergency room at Northwell Presbyterian was chaos. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the smell of antiseptic mixed with anxiety hung in the air. Sebastian held Theo close, his son's labored breathing the only sound that mattered. A nurse took them back quickly. Money and influence had their advantages even here. But as they wheeled Theo into a private room, Sebastian felt the walls closing in. We need to run tests, a young resident said, scribbling notes. It could be a viral infection or something more serious. We'll know more soon. More serious? Sebastian's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded storms. What does that mean? Sir, we just need to be thorough. I want your best pediatrician. Now. The resident hesitated, then nodded. Dr. Ellington is on call tonight. She's one of the best we have. Sebastian froze. The name hit him like a freight train. It couldn't be. Not her. Not after 3 years of silence, of carefully avoiding every place she might be, every mutual connection that might mention her name. But before he could process it, the door opened, and there she was. Harper Ellington stood in the doorway, her white coat crisp, her dark blonde hair pulled back in a low bun. Her hazel eyes, the same ones that used to look at him with love, then disappointment, then nothing, widened in recognition. Time stopped. She recovered first, her professional mask sliding into place with practiced ease. Mr. Ward. Her voice was steady, clinical. I understand your son is running a high fever. Sebastian couldn't speak. His throat was dry, his carefully constructed walls crumbling with every second she stood there. Harper moved past him, her focus shifting entirely to Theo. She lifted the baby gently from the bassinet, her touch confident and tender. Theo stirred, his fever-glazed eyes blinking up at her. Hey there, little one, she whispered, pressing her stethoscope to his tiny chest. Let's figure out what's going on, okay? Sebastian watched her work, efficient, compassionate, entirely in her element. This was the Harper he remembered, the one who chose healing over everything else, even over him. After several minutes of examination, she set Theo down carefully and turned to face Sebastian. Her expression was unreadable. We need to admit him for observation. His fever is too high, and I want to rule out bacterial infection. We'll start IV fluids and antibiotics as a precaution. Is he going to be okay? The question came out more vulnerable than he intended. Harper's eyes softened, just for a moment. I'll make sure of it. As the nurses prepared to transfer Theo to the pediatric unit, Sebastian stood frozen in place, watching Harper give orders with quiet authority. She didn't look back at him, not once, but as she walked out of the room, He caught the slight tremor in her hand as she gripped her clipboard. She felt it too. Would you trust your greatest fear to the one who once held your heart? The pediatric intensive care unit was quieter than the emergency room, but the silence felt heavier. Sebastian sat in a chair beside Theo's crib, watching the rise and fall of his son's chest through the plastic barrier. An IV line ran from the baby's tiny hand, taped carefully in place. Monitors beeped rhythmically, tracking every heartbeat, every breath. He should have been on a conference call with Tokyo. He should have been reviewing quarterly projections. Instead, he was here, powerless, watching his 8-month-old son fight something he couldn't control, couldn't negotiate with, couldn't buy his way out of. The door opened softly, and Harper entered carrying a tablet. She moved with the same grace he remembered, though now it was paired with the confidence of someone who'd spent years mastering her craft. She checked the monitors without acknowledging him, her fingers flying across the screen as she updated Theo's chart. His temperature is down to 101.3, she said, her voice professionally neutral. The fluids are helping. We're still waiting on blood cultures, but his white blood cell count suggests a viral infection rather than bacterial. Meaning? Meaning he'll recover with supportive care. No surgery, no long-term damage. She finally looked at him, and for a split second, he saw something flicker in her eyes. Concern, maybe, or old familiarity. He's going to be fine, Sebastian. The sound of his name on her lips after 3 years felt like both a comfort and a wound. Thank you, he managed. Harper nodded and turned to leave, but he spoke again before he could stop himself. How have you been? She paused at the door, her back to him. The silence stretched between them like a canyon. Busy, she finally said, not turning around. Residency was brutal, but I made it through. She glanced over her shoulder. I heard about your company. The FDA approval for the cardiac monitoring system was impressive. You kept track? Hard not to when your face is on the cover of Forbes every other month. There was no bitterness in her tone, just statement of fact. Get some rest, Mr. Ward. Visiting hours are technically over, but I'll make an exception. You can stay with him tonight. Harper, I'll check on him every hour. She left before he could say anything else, the door clicking shut behind her. Sebastian leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes. This wasn't how he'd imagined seeing her again, if he'd ever let himself imagine it at all. In his mind, their paths would cross at some medical conference where he was keynote speaker, or perhaps at a charity gala where he could demonstrate how successful he'd become without her. Not like this. Not when he was unshaven, exhausted, and terrified for his son's life. At 2:47 a.m., Harper returned as promised. Sebastian had dozed off, his head tilted at an awkward angle against the chair's hard back. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him sleep. The harsh hospital lights revealed the new lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. He looked older, tired, human. She approached Theo's crib quietly, checking his vitals with practiced efficiency. The baby was sleeping peacefully now, his fever finally breaking. His tiny fist was curled near his face, his features so much like Sebastian's that it made her chest tighten. This child had a mother once, she reminded herself. Someone Sebastian had moved on with. Someone who'd given him what Harper never could, or never would. Is he okay? She jumped slightly. Sebastian was awake, watching her with red-rimmed eyes. He's stable. Temperature is down to 99.8. That's a very good sign. She made a note on her tablet, then hesitated. You should go home. Get real sleep, we'll call if anything changes. I'm not leaving him. Sebastian, I said I'm not leaving him. His voice was firm but not angry. Just broken. I've already lost too much. I won't lose him too. Harper saw the grief in his face then, raw and unguarded. She knew about the baby's mother. Hospital gossip traveled fast, and the death of a young woman with postpartum complications was the kind of tragedy that haunted an entire maternity ward. She sat down in the chair across from him, something she absolutely shouldn't do as his son's attending physician. I'm sorry, she said quietly, about Theo's mother. I heard what happened. Sebastian's jaw clenched. She was good to me. We weren't in love, but we respected each other. She didn't deserve what happened. No one does. They sat in silence, two people who once knew every secret of each other's hearts, now strangers bonded only by a sick child and shared history. Why pediatrics? Sebastian asked suddenly. You always talked about emergency medicine. Harper smiled faintly. Kids are honest. They don't hide their pain behind boardroom speeches or billion-dollar deals. They just hurt and heal and trust you to help them. She met his eyes. I needed that honesty after. She stopped herself. After us? After everything. Sebastian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Harper, But before he could finish, Theo stirred and let out a soft whimper. Both of them stood immediately, instinct overriding unfinished conversations. Harper reached the crib first, gently placing her hand on the baby's chest. Shh, sweet boy, you're okay. And miraculously, Theo settled. His tiny hand reached up and wrapped around Harper's finger, holding on with surprising strength for someone so small. Sebastian stared at them, at Harper's gentle smile, at his son's peaceful face, at the connection forming between them in real time. Something shifted in his chest, something dangerous and terrifying. Harper looked up and caught his expression. She carefully extracted her finger from Theo's grip and stepped back. I should go. Other patients to check on. She moved toward the door quickly, professionally. Harper. She stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you for taking care of him. Her shoulders tensed. It's my job, Sebastian. I know, but still, thank you. She left without another word, and Sebastian sank back into his chair. Through the window, he watched her stop at the nurse's station, saw her press her fingers to her temples like she was fighting a headache or a memory. In the crib, Theo slept peacefully, his tiny chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, and Sebastian realized with growing dread that the universe had just handed him something far more complicated than a second chance. It had given him hope. Morning light filtered through the hospital blinds, casting soft stripes across Theo's crib. Sebastian hadn't slept. Not really. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Harper's face, heard the careful distance in her voice, felt the ghost of what they'd been. A nurse came in at 7 to check Theo's vitals, her smile warm and practiced. Good news, Dad. His fever's been normal all night. Dr. Ellington says, if he keeps improving, you might take him home tomorrow. Tomorrow. One more day of seeing Harper in her element, of watching her save his son while maintaining the professional wall between them. One more day of torture disguised as relief. Thank you, Sebastian said, running a hand through his disheveled hair. He needed a shower, a change of clothes, and about 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep, but he wasn't leaving. His phone had been vibrating nonstop since dawn. 43 missed calls, most from his COO, Daniel. The board meeting he'd walked out on yesterday had apparently gone as well as expected, which was to say disastrously. A potential merger was hanging by a thread. Investors were nervous, and the press was already circling with questions about his sudden departure. He didn't care. Let them wait. Let the stock price fluctuate. His son was alive, and that was the only bottom line that mattered right now. Harper stood at the nurse's station, reviewing patient charts with Dr. Reeves, one of the senior attendings. She'd been awake for 26 hours straight, fueled by coffee and muscle memory. Her shift had technically ended at 6, but she couldn't bring herself to leave. Not yet. You should go home, Ellington, Dr. Reeves said, glancing at her with concern. The ward baby is stable. Jenkins can take over. I know, I just want to make sure that you're avoiding the father. Harper's head snapped up. Dr. Reeves was in his 60s with kind eyes and zero tolerance for nonsense. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know the look of someone running from their past. He closed his tablet. Whatever history you two have, don't let it compromise your judgment. If you need to transfer the case, do it. I won't let it affect my work. I'm not worried about your work. I'm worried about you. He squeezed her shoulder briefly. Go home. Sleep. That's an order. Harper nodded. But as Dr. Reeves walked away, she found herself heading toward the pediatric ward instead of the exit. Just one more check, just to make sure Theo's numbers were holding steady. She told herself it was professional diligence. She knew it was a lie. Sebastian was standing at the window when she entered, his back to the door. He'd taken off his jacket sometime during the night, his white shirt wrinkled and untucked. There was something vulnerable about seeing him like this. The great Sebastian Ward, unpolished and human. You're still here, Harper said quietly. He turned, and she saw the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. So are you. My shift just ended. I was doing final rounds. Of course. He looked back out the window at the city waking up below. Thank you for staying with him last night. I know you didn't have to. Harper approached Theo's crib, checking the monitors even though she'd reviewed them 10 minutes ago at the nurse's station. The baby was awake now, staring up at the mobile hanging above him with wide, curious eyes. "He has your eyes," she said before she could stop herself. Sebastian moved closer, standing on the opposite side of the crib. "Everyone says that. I don't see it. That's because you're too busy looking at everything else." Harper reached down and let Theo wrap his fingers around her thumb. "Kids see the world differently. No filters, no walls, just pure experience. Sounds terrifying. It is." She smiled softly at the baby. "But it's also beautiful." They stood in silence, both watching Theo, both acutely aware of the 2 feet of space between them that felt like miles. "I think about it sometimes," Sebastian said suddenly, "about how different things could have been." Harper's hand stilled. "Sebastian, I'm not trying to start something, I need you to know that I know. I know I messed up. I chose work over us. I chose deals and acquisitions and board meetings over the one person who actually mattered." His voice was rough, honest, "and I've regretted it every single day since." Harper pulled her hand away from Theo, straightening. "You made your choice. I made mine. We both moved on. Did we?" The question hung in the air between them, dangerous and true. Harper felt her carefully constructed defenses cracking. "You had a child with someone else, Sebastian. You built a whole life. I built nothing," he interrupted, his voice sharp. "Amelia and I, it was convenient, safe. We wanted the same things. No expectations, no complications. And then Theo happened, and I thought maybe I could do it. Be a father without having to be vulnerable." He laughed bitterly. "Then she died, and I realized I'd been running from feeling anything real for so long that I forgot how." Harper's throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because seeing you again." He stopped, searching for words. "Because for the first time in 3 years I feel something other than numb. And I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know that. But I need you to understand that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life." Harper closed her eyes, fighting the tears that threatened to fall. This was exactly what she'd feared. Not his indifference, but his honesty. Not his absence, but his presence. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Not here. Not now. I know, I'm sorry." Sebastian stepped back, giving her space. "I shouldn't have said anything." Harper turned toward the door, but Theo made a sound. A small, distressed whimper. Instinctively, both of them moved toward the crib. Harper got there first, lifting the baby gently. Theo settled immediately against her chest, his tiny hand fisting in her white coat. Sebastian watched them, and Harper saw something break open in his expression. Longing, grief, hope, all tangled together. "He trusts you," Sebastian said softly. "In 8 months I've never seen him settle that quickly for anyone except Maria and me." Harper looked down at Theo's peaceful face, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing against her. This wasn't fair. None of this was fair. "I should go," she said, carefully placing Theo back in his crib. The baby protested, reaching for her, but she forced herself to step away. "Dr. Jenkins will take over your case. He's excellent." "Harper, wait." But she was already at the door, her hand on the handle. "3 years ago, you told me you couldn't give me what I needed," she said without turning around. "You were honest about that at least. So please, Sebastian, don't ask me to go through it again." She left before he could respond, her footsteps echoing down the hallway as she walked away from the one man who'd ever truly broken her heart. Behind her, through the window, Sebastian stood alone in the sterile room, holding his son and wondering if some mistakes were too big to ever fix. Harper made it to the parking garage before the tears came. She sat in her Honda Civic, a practical car she'd bought during residency and never bothered to upgrade, and let herself break down for exactly 3 minutes. Then she wiped her eyes, started the engine, and drove home to her studio apartment in Brooklyn. She'd worked too hard to let Sebastian Ward unravel her again. Her apartment was small but comfortable, decorated with plants she somehow kept alive despite her schedule and framed photographs of her family. Her younger sister Lily grinned from a frame on the bookshelf, forever frozen at 16 in her high school graduation gown. Her parents stood proud beside her, their farm in upstate New York visible in the background. Harper showered, changed into comfortable clothes and tried to sleep. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Theo's tiny hand reaching for her, saw Sebastian's raw honesty, felt the weight of 3 years of unresolved feelings pressing down on her chest. At 2 in the afternoon, she gave up and made coffee instead. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend and colleague, Dr. Simone Laurent. "Simone, heard you pulled a double. You okay?" Harper, "Fine, just tired." Simone. Liar. Coffee at Tony's in 20? Harper smiled despite herself. Simone had been her anchor through medical school, residency, and the aftermath of her breakup with Sebastian. If anyone could see through her deflections, it was Simone. Harper. Make it 30. I need to look human first. Tony's coffee shop was a hole-in-the-wall place 3 blocks from the hospital, frequented by exhausted medical staff and local artists. Simone was already there when Harper arrived, seated at their usual corner table with 2 large coffees and a knowing look. You look terrible, Simone said by way of greeting. She was stunning as always. Dark skin, natural curls pulled into a high puff, and a style that somehow made scrubs look fashionable. Thanks. You look annoyingly perfect. It's a gift. Simone pushed a coffee across the table. So, want to tell me why you're spiraling, or should I guess? Harper wrapped her hands around the warm cup. Sebastian Ward's baby was admitted last night. Viral infection. I was the attending. Simone's eyes widened. Sebastian Ward? As in your Sebastian Ward? Billionaire tech mogul? Forbes cover? Broke your heart 3 years ago, Sebastian Ward? He was never my anything. And yes. Holy hell. Simone leaned back, processing. How did that go? Professionally. Harper. Fine. It was a disaster. He apologized. Said losing me was his biggest mistake. And his son, her voice cracked slightly. His son is beautiful, Simone. 8 months old. And he has Sebastian's eyes, and he held my finger like I was something precious, and I still love him. Simone finished gently. No. Harper shook her head firmly. I don't. I can't. He made his choice 3 years ago. People change. Not Sebastian. He's constitutionally incapable of putting anything above his work. You know what he told me the night we broke up? He said he couldn't promise me time he didn't have, that I deserved someone who could be present. Harper's laugh was bitter. At least he was honest. Simone studied her friend carefully. And now he has a baby, which means he had to learn to prioritize something other than work. Or he hired a nanny and kept living his life exactly the same. Did he look like a man who hired a nanny and moved on? Harper was quiet. The truth was, Sebastian had looked haunted, exhausted, desperate. Nothing like the controlled, calculated man who'd walked away from their relationship without a fight. It doesn't matter, Harper said finally. I transferred his case. Dr. Jenkins is handling it now. You're running. I'm protecting myself. Sometimes those are the same thing. Simone reached across the table and squeezed Harper's hand. I'm not saying you should give him another chance. I'm just saying don't let fear make the decision for you. Before Harper could respond, her phone rang. The hospital. She answered immediately, her professional mask sliding into place. Dr. Ellington. Doctor, this is Nurse Chen from Pediatrics. I know you transferred the Ward case, but the baby is asking for you. Harper frowned. Asking for me? He's 8 months old. He won't stop crying. We've tried everything. Feeding, changing, walking him around. He calms down for about 30 seconds, then starts again. Dr. Jenkins suggested we call you. The father said. She paused. He said you were the only one who could settle him last night. Harper closed her eyes. Of course this was happening. I'll be there in 15 minutes. When Harper arrived at the pediatric ward, she could hear Theo's cries from down the hallway. Not the angry wails of discomfort, but the heartbroken sobs of a baby who wanted something he couldn't articulate. Sebastian stood beside the crib, holding Theo against his chest, rocking him gently. His shirt was damp with tears. The baby's, possibly his own. He looked up when Harper entered, and the relief in his eyes was almost painful to witness. I'm sorry, he said over Theo's cries. I know you didn't want to. Let me see him. Sebastian carefully transferred Theo to her arms, and the change was immediate. The baby's sobs quieted to whimpers, then to hiccuping breaths, then to silence. He nestled against Harper's shoulder, his tiny fist clutching her shirt, his breathing evening out into something almost peaceful. The room fell quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. How do you do that? Sebastian asked, his voice rough with emotion. Harper looked down at Theo, feeling the weight of him, the trust. I don't know. Sebastian sank into the chair, covering his face with his hands. His shoulders shook once, twice. When he looked up, his eyes were red. I can't do this without help, he admitted. I thought I could. Thought I could hire the best nanny, follow all the schedules, read all the books. But he needs more than that. He gestured helplessly at Harper holding his son. That, whatever that is. Harper sat down carefully, still cradling Theo. Sebastian, I can't be what you need me to be. Not for you and not for him. I know, I'm not asking you to be. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But he's being discharged tomorrow, and I'm terrified. What if he gets sick again? What if I miss something? What if... You call your pediatrician, you trust your instincts, you learn as you go. Harper's voice was gentle but firm. That's what every parent does. I'm not every parent. I'm a parent who's already failed at the one relationship that mattered most in my life. His eyes met hers. I can't fail him too. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in Harper's chest. This wasn't the confident billionaire from magazine covers. This was just a man, terrified of losing his son, of being alone, of repeating his mistakes. Theo stirred in her arms, making a soft, cooing sound. Harper looked down at him, then back at Sebastian. She was going to regret this. She knew she was going to regret this, but she couldn't walk away. Not from this baby who trusted her. Not from this man who was finally asking for help. I'll give you my personal number, she said quietly. If you have questions, if you're worried, if something seems off. She paused. But this is about Theo. Only Theo, not us. Sebastian nodded quickly. Of course, only Theo. Harper stood, carefully placing the sleeping baby back in his crib. She pulled out her phone and sent Sebastian a text with her number. Thank you, he said. Harper, don't. She held up a hand. Don't thank me. Don't make this more than it is. I'm doing this for him. She left before he could see the lie in her eyes. Because the truth she couldn't admit even to herself, was that she was doing it for all of them. 3 days passed before Sebastian texted. Harper told herself she wasn't waiting. She went to work, saw her patients, had dinner with Simone, went to her weekly yoga class. She lived her life exactly as she had before Theo Ward was admitted to her hospital. Except she checked her phone more often than usual. Except she thought about a pair of wide gray eyes and tiny fingers that gripped with surprising strength. Except she dreamed about Sebastian's voice saying losing you was the biggest mistake of my life and woke up with her heart racing. On the 4th day, her phone buzzed at 11 p.m. She was in bed reading a medical journal she wasn't absorbing. Unknown number. His temperature is 99.1. Is that normal, or should I be worried? Harper saved the contact as Sebastian W. and responded, Harper. Normal. Babies run slightly warmer than adults. Anything over 100.4 is concerning. How's he acting? Sebastian W. Happy. Just ate. Playing with his feet. Harper. Then he's fine. You're doing great. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Sebastian W. Thank you for answering, and for this. Harper stared at the message for a long moment before turning off her phone and forcing herself to sleep. The texts became routine. Small questions at first, feeding schedules, sleep patterns, developmental milestones. Sebastian never asked about her day, never tried to steer conversations toward personal territory. He kept his promise, which somehow made it worse. Because Harper found herself wanting him to ask, wanting him to cross the line she'd drawn, just so she could have a reason to be angry instead of confused. 2 weeks after Theo's discharge, she was leaving the hospital at sunset when her phone rang. Not a text, a call. Sebastian's name flashed on the screen. She answered. Is everything okay? I need help. His voice was strained. Theo won't stop crying. It's been 3 hours. I've tried everything. Feeding, changing, gas drops, walking. Nothing works, and He took a shaky breath. I don't know what's wrong. Harper heard Theo's wails in the background, the desperate quality that every pediatrician recognized. Where are you? Home. Tribeca. I'm coming over. Harper, you don't have to. Text me your address. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up before he could argue. Sebastian's townhouse was exactly what she'd expected. Modern, expensive, immaculate. A woman in her 50s answered the door, her face creased with worry. Dr. Ellington? I'm Maria, the nanny. Thank God you're here. I've been with babies for 30 years and I've never seen anything like this. Harper followed the sound of crying upstairs to a nursery decorated in soft blues and grays. Sebastian stood at the window, bouncing Theo in his arms, his dress shirt rumpled and partially unbuttoned. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 hours. Let me see him, Harper said, setting down her bag. Sebastian transferred Theo to her carefully. The baby was red-faced, his little body tense with distress. Harper felt his forehead, slightly warm but not feverish. She checked his diaper, examined his belly, looked in his ears with the otoscope she'd grabbed from her car. When did he last eat? She asked, her fingers gently probing Theo's abdomen. 2 hours ago. He took the bottle fine. Harper noticed the way Theo arched his back, the way he pulled his knees up, and his bowel movements today. Sebastian looked at Maria, who shook her head. Nothing since this morning. He's constipated, Harper said, relief flooding through her. Uncomfortable but not dangerous. Maria, do you have any glycerin suppositories? In the bathroom cabinet. 10 minutes later, after the suppository had done its work, Theo was calm. His crying had stopped, replaced by curious babbling as he grabbed at Harper's stethoscope. The transformation was remarkable. Sebastian sat on the floor of the nursery, his head tilted back against the wall, eyes closed. I thought something was seriously wrong. I was about to drive to the emergency room. You did the right thing calling me first. Harper sat in the rocking chair, letting Theo play with her fingers. Constipation is common when babies start solid foods. Just watch his diet, more water, some pureed prunes. I'll add that to the list of things I don't know how to do. His laugh was exhausted. Some father I am. Sebastian, no, it's true. I can negotiate billion-dollar deals, but I can't tell when my son needs to poop. He opened his eyes, looking at her with something close to desperation. How do people do this? How do they just... No. Harper felt her defenses wavering. They don't. They're all terrified and guessing. You just hide it better in boardrooms. Maria appeared in the doorway. Mr. Ward, I made coffee. Would you and the doctor like some? Yes, please, Harper said before Sebastian could answer. Thank you, Maria. When the nanny left, Sebastian stood and sat on the ottoman across from Harper, close enough that their knees almost touched. Theo reached for him, and Harper transferred the baby carefully. Father and son looked at each other, and Harper saw Sebastian's expression soften into something achingly tender. He's lucky to have you, Harper said quietly. He deserves better. He deserves you. Imperfect. Learning. Trying. That's what love is. Sebastian looked up at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Is that what we were doing? Trying? Sebastian, I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but you're here, in my home, holding my son, and I... He stopped himself. I'm sorry. Forget I said anything. But Harper couldn't forget. The words hung between them, years of unfinished conversations pressing against the careful boundaries they'd constructed. Maria returned with coffee, and the moment broke. They sat in the nursery drinking from expensive mugs while Theo dozed in his father's arms, and Harper wondered how she'd ended up here, in the home of the man who'd broken her heart, feeling more at peace than she had in 3 years. Stay for dinner, Sebastian said suddenly. Please, it's the least I can do. I should go. Maria made too much. And it's late. And... He met her eyes. I don't want you to drive home this late alone. It was a flimsy excuse. Brooklyn wasn't far, and Harper had driven home at all hours as a resident. But something in his voice, not manipulation, just honest want, made her nod. Okay, but just dinner. They ate at the kitchen island, pasta with vegetables that Maria had prepared before leaving for the evening. Theo was in his high chair between them, gnawing on a teething biscuit and making happy sounds. This is good, Harper said, twirling pasta on her fork. Tell Maria she's an excellent cook. She'll be thrilled. I think she worries I don't eat enough. Sebastian watched Theo, then looked at Harper. Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. Why pediatrics? Really? You were so passionate about trauma surgery in medical school. Harper set down her fork. Because trauma surgery is about saving people in their worst moments. But pediatrics is about giving them better moments before the worst ever happens. She smiled at Theo. Kids are resilient. They heal faster, bounce back, trust again. I guess I needed to be around that kind of hope. After us, Sebastian said quietly. After everything. They ate in silence for a moment. Then Sebastian spoke again, his voice careful. I saw your name in the hospital newsletter. You published a paper on pediatric cardiac care in underserved communities. Harper looked up, surprised. You read the hospital newsletter? I read everything that mentions you. He said it simply, like it was obvious. I know that's probably weird, but I wanted to know you were okay, that you were happy. Sebastian, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I just need you to know that you didn't disappear from my life. You were just everywhere I couldn't reach. Harper felt tears prick her eyes. This was dangerous territory. This was exactly what she'd been trying to avoid. But Theo chose that moment to throw his biscuit directly at Sebastian's face, breaking the tension. It bounced off his nose and landed in his pasta. They both froze. Then Harper burst out laughing, real, surprised laughter that echoed through the kitchen. Sebastian stared at her, then at his son, then started laughing too. I think that's his way of telling us we're being too serious, Sebastian said, wiping tomato sauce off his cheek. Smart kid. Harper handed him a napkin, their fingers brushing briefly. The touch sent electricity up her arm. From the way Sebastian's eyes darkened, he felt it too. Harper stood quickly. I should go. It's late, and I have an early shift. Of course. Sebastian stood too, not arguing this time. Thank you, for coming, for helping, for… Just text me if you need anything, Harper interrupted, gathering her bag. Anything about Theo, I mean. I know what you meant. At the door, Harper turned back. Sebastian stood in the hallway, holding Theo, both of them watching her leave. The image was so domestic, so perfect, that it physically hurt. Good night, Sebastian. Good night, Harper. She made it to her car before she let herself acknowledge the truth. She was falling again, and this time there would be no easy way to stop. Harper's phone buzzed at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. She groaned, reaching for it with one eye still closed, expecting a hospital emergency. Sebastian W. Theo took his first real steps this morning. Thought you'd want to know. Below the text was a video. Harper sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake, and pressed play. The footage was shaky, clearly filmed in a rush. Theo stood near a coffee table, both hands gripping the edge. Sebastian's voice came from behind the camera, encouraging and excited. Come on, buddy. You can do it. Come to Daddy. Theo looked at the camera, grinned that heart-melting baby grin, and took 3 wobbly steps before falling onto his padded bottom. The video ended with Sebastian's laugh, genuine, unguarded, full of pure joy. Harper watched it 3 times. Harper. That's amazing. He's right on schedule. Did you get it on your actual camera or just phone? Sebastian W. Just phone. I wasn't expecting it. 1 minute he was standing, next minute he was walking. I nearly dropped my coffee. Harper. Welcome to parenthood. They never warn you that all the big moments happen when you're least prepared. Sebastian W. I'm learning that. Thank you. For everything. Harper stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She should keep it professional, should maintain distance. Instead, she typed, Want to celebrate? There's a farmer's market in Union Square. Good for kids, fresh air, normal people things. She hit send before she could overthink it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Sebastian W. What time? Harper arrived at Union Square at 10, wearing jeans and a light sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She told herself this wasn't a date. This was a pediatrician supporting a new father. This was perfectly professional. This was a complete lie, and she knew it. Sebastian was already there, pushing Theo in a high-end stroller that probably cost more than Harper's monthly rent. He wore dark jeans and a navy Henley, casual clothes that somehow made him look more attractive than any tailored suit. Theo was dressed in tiny overalls and a striped shirt, looking like a magazine ad for perfect babies. Hey, Sebastian said, his smile genuine and slightly nervous. Thanks for suggesting this. I've lived in Manhattan for 15 years and never been to the farmer's market. That's criminal. Harper knelt down to Theo's level. Good morning, walking man. Feeling proud of yourself? Theo babbled excitedly, reaching for her. Harper unstrapped him from the stroller and lifted him up. He immediately grabbed a fistful of her hair, which she'd learned was his favorite greeting. He missed you, Sebastian said quietly. I saw him 4 days ago. I know. He still missed you. Their eyes met over Theo's head, and Harper felt that familiar pull. Dangerous, intoxicating, terrifying. Come on, she said, breaking the moment. Let's find some overpriced organic apples. They wandered through the market, weaving between vendors selling everything from fresh produce to handmade jewelry. Harper pointed out different vegetables to Theo, letting him touch the smooth skin of an eggplant, the bumpy texture of cauliflower. Sebastian watched them with an expression Harper couldn't quite read. You're good with him, he said as they stopped at a honey vendor. I'm good with all kids. It's literally my job. No, it's different with you. He's different. Sebastian accepted a honey sample on a small wooden stick. Maria is wonderful, patient, experienced, loving, but when you're around, he lights up, like you're the sun and everyone else is just artificial light. Harper felt her cheeks warm. He's just comfortable with me because I was there when he was sick. Maybe. Sebastian didn't sound convinced. He turned to the vendor. We'll take 2 jars of the wildflower honey. As Sebastian paid, a woman approached with a toddler in her arms. "Your family is beautiful," she said to Harper with a warm smile. "How old is your son?" Harper opened her mouth to correct her, but Sebastian spoke first. 8 months, he said smoothly, accepting the honey jars. "Thank you." The woman walked away and Harper stared at Sebastian. "Why didn't you correct her?" He shrugged, but there was something vulnerable in his expression. "Would you have wanted me to?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither of them was ready to address. Harper looked down at Theo, who had fallen asleep against her shoulder, his tiny hand clutched in her sweater. "We should get him home for his nap," she said, avoiding the answer. They walked back toward Sebastian's townhouse. Somehow, without discussing it, that had become the destination. The October air was crisp, leaves crunching under their feet. Other families passed them, and Harper wondered if they looked like what that woman had assumed. A couple, a family, something whole. "Can I ask you something?" Sebastian said as they turned onto his street. "You're going to anyway." A small smile. "Fair. What happened after we broke up? I know you finished residency, got the job at Northwell. But the rest? Did you date? Move on? Find someone who could give you what I couldn't?" Harper stopped walking. "Why are you asking me this?" "Because I need to know if I'm the only one who couldn't let go." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. She adjusted Theo in her arms, using him as a shield. "I dated," she said finally. "A surgeon named James. Kind, stable, always available for dinner and weekend plans. Exactly what I thought I wanted. What happened? He asked me to marry him and I realized I was using him to feel nothing." Harper met Sebastian's eyes. "After you, I didn't want to feel that much again. James was safe, comfortable, boring. You said no. I said no." They started walking again. "Simone says I'm emotionally unavailable. My therapist says I have commitment issues. I think I just have Sebastian Ward issues." He laughed, but it was pained. "I'm sorry. For all of it. Don't be. You were honest about what you could give me. I'm the one who thought love would be enough to change you." They reached his townhouse. Sebastian unlocked the door, and Harper carried Theo inside. The house was quiet. Maria had the weekend off. Harper navigated to the nursery like she'd been there 100 times, laying Theo gently in his crib. He stirred but didn't wake, his little chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. "Coffee?" Sebastian offered as they came back downstairs. Harper knew she should leave, knew that staying would only make everything more complicated. "Sure," she said. They sat at the kitchen island, mugs steaming between them. The afternoon light filtered through the windows, casting everything in gold. It felt almost painfully domestic. "I have a confession," Sebastian said suddenly. "That night you came over, when Theo was crying, I knew what was wrong." Harper set down her mug. "What?" Maria had already figured out it was constipation. "She told me right before I called you." He met her eyes. "I called you anyway because I wanted to see you. Because having you here even for an emergency felt like breathing after years of holding my breath." Harper's heart hammered. "Sebastian, I know this isn't what we agreed to. I know I'm breaking the rules." He reached across the counter, stopping just short of touching her hand. "But I can't keep pretending this is just about Theo. I can't keep pretending you're just his doctor. Then what am I?" Harper whispered. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. Sebastian frowned. "I'm not expecting anyone." He went to answer it and Harper heard a woman's voice, sharp, cultured, angry. Then footsteps, heels clicking on hardwood, coming closer. A woman swept into the kitchen, late 50s, platinum hair in a severe bob, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than Harper's car. Her eyes were cold, assessing, filled with barely contained rage. "Where is my grandson?" she demanded. Sebastian appeared behind her, his face pale. "Patricia, what are you doing here?" "Collecting what's mine." Patricia's gaze fixed on Harper. "And you must be the doctor. How convenient." Sebastian always did prefer mixing business with pleasure. Harper stood. "I should go." "No." Sebastian's voice was firm. "Harper, stay. Patricia, you can't just show up unannounced." "I can when my son's child is being raised by a stranger." Patricia's voice dripped with venom. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That you've been parading some woman around playing house, replacing Amelia like she never existed? That's enough," Sebastian said, his voice dangerously quiet. But Patricia wasn't finished. She turned to Harper, her smile cruel. "Did he tell you? About how he destroyed my daughter's life? How he got her pregnant and then couldn't even be bothered to love her? How she died alone while he was in some boardroom making money. Harper felt like she'd been slapped. I'm not. You're not what? Not sleeping with him? Not playing mother to my grandson? Patricia laughed bitterly. You're just like all the others. Temporary. Forgettable. Gone the moment something more important comes along. Get out, Sebastian said. Now, I'm not leaving without Theo. You have no legal right. I have a lawyer who says otherwise. Grandparent rights, Sebastian. Look them up. Patricia pulled out her phone. I'll see you in court, and when I'm done, you'll be lucky to have supervised visits. She swept out as dramatically as she'd entered, leaving destruction in her wake. The silence that followed was deafening. Harper grabbed her bag with shaking hands. Harper, please. Let me explain. Explain what? That your dead girlfriend's mother just threatened to take your child? That I'm somehow part of this mess now? Harper's voice cracked. I can't do this, Sebastian. I can't be in the middle of whatever this is. You're not in the middle, you're… What? What am I? Harper demanded, tears streaming down her face. Because 5 minutes ago you were about to tell me I'm more than Theo's doctor, and now his grandmother is threatening legal action and using me as evidence against you. Sebastian reached for her, but she stepped back. I'm sorry, he said desperately. Patricia is… She's grieving, she's angry, she's right. Harper's voice was hollow. I am temporary. Because that's all you know how to do, Sebastian. Temporary. Convenient. Until something more important comes along. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. Harper headed for the door. Don't call me. Don't text me. Find another doctor for Theo. Harper, please. She left without looking back, even though she could hear Theo starting to cry upstairs, woken by the noise. Even though every instinct screamed at her to turn around. Even though leaving felt like tearing out her own heart all over again. 2 weeks passed in painful silence. Sebastian texted once. I'm sorry. For everything. Please don't shut me out completely. Harper deleted it without responding. He texted again 3 days later. Theo asks for you. He points at the door and says, Ha, I think he's trying to say your name. Harper turned off her phone. At work, she threw herself into 12-hour shifts, accepting every extra case, volunteering for weekend coverage. Simone watched her with worried eyes but didn't push. Even Dr. Reeves commented that she looked exhausted. Take a day off, Ellington, he said after she'd been on her feet for 16 hours straight. That's an order. So Harper went home to her empty apartment and stared at the ceiling, replaying Patricia's words on an endless loop. Temporary, forgettable, gone the moment something more important comes along. The worst part? She wasn't wrong. Harper's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Dr. Ellington? A professional female voice. This is Jennifer Moss from Cunningham & Associates. I'm an attorney representing Sebastian Ward in a custody matter. Mr. Ward has listed you as a character witness. Would you be available to give a deposition? Harper's stomach dropped. A deposition? Mrs. Patricia Brennan has filed for emergency custody of Theodore Ward, citing neglect and improper environment. Your testimony could be crucial to Mr. Ward's case. I'm not involved in their family situation. According to Mrs. Brennan's filing, you've been a regular presence in the child's life. She's claiming you're evidence of Mr. Ward's instability and poor judgment. A pause. Mr. Ward doesn't want to pressure you, but I have to tell you honestly, without your testimony, he could lose his son. Harper closed her eyes. When do you need my answer? We have a hearing in 5 days. I'll email you the details. The call ended, and Harper sat in the growing darkness of her apartment, feeling the walls close in. She lasted 3 days before calling Simone. They met at a wine bar in Chelsea, one of those cozy places with dim lighting and intimate booths. Simone ordered them a bottle of Pinot Noir and waited while Harper drank half a glass in one long swallow. Okay, Simone said. Talk. Harper told her everything. Patricia's surprise visit, the custody threat, the lawyer's call. By the end, she was crying into her wine glass, mascara probably running down her face. So what are you going to do? Simone asked gently. I don't know. If I testify, I'm declaring myself part of his life, part of Theo's life. And what if it's not enough? What if Patricia wins anyway? And if you don't testify? Then Sebastian loses his son because I was too afraid to help. Simone reached across the table and squeezed Harper's hand. Honey, I'm going to say something and I need you to really hear me. You're not afraid of losing. You're afraid of winning. Harper looked up, confused. What? If you testify and Sebastian keeps Theo, then what? You can't hide behind professional boundaries anymore. You can't pretend this is just about the baby. You'd have to face what you actually want. Simone's voice was kind, but firm. And what you want terrifies you more than losing ever could. Harper stared at her friend, the truth of it settling into her bones. What if he breaks my heart again? She whispered. What if he doesn't? The hearing was held in family court in downtown Manhattan. Harper arrived 15 minutes early, wearing a simple navy dress and pearls her mother had given her. Her hands shook as she checked in with the bailiff. Sebastian was already there with his legal team, sitting at the defendant's table. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, his suit perfectly tailored but hanging slightly loose, like he'd lost weight. When he saw Harper, his expression shifted from resignation to something that looked like desperate hope. Patricia sat across the aisle with her attorney, a shark in an expensive suit. She looked at Harper with cold triumph, like she'd already won. The judge entered, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Martinez. Let's begin. Mrs. Brennan, your petition claims that Mr. Ward is providing an unstable environment for his son. Present your evidence. Patricia's attorney stood, launching into a prepared statement about Sebastian's demanding work schedule, his lack of parenting experience, his parade of women through the child's life. Harper's name came up repeatedly, always with the implication that she was just another girlfriend, another temporary fixture. Dr. Ellington has been documented visiting Mr. Ward's residence multiple times, the attorney said, staying late into the evening, engaging in a romantic relationship while supposedly providing medical care to the child. This represents a clear conflict of interest and poor judgment on Mr. Ward's part. Sebastian's attorney, Jennifer Moss, stood. Your Honor, Dr. Ellington is here to provide testimony. I think the court will find that Mrs. Brennan's characterization is not only inaccurate but deliberately misleading. Judge Martinez looked at Harper. Dr. Ellington, please approach. Harper stood on legs that felt like water. She was sworn in, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. Jennifer began with easy questions. Harper's credentials, her role as Theo's pediatrician, the circumstances of their first meeting. Then she got to the heart of it. Dr. Ellington, can you describe Mr. Ward's capabilities as a father? Harper took a breath. When Theo was first admitted, Mr. Ward was terrified. He didn't know what to do, didn't know how to help. But he stayed. He didn't leave his son's side for 3 days. He asked questions, learned, adapted. She looked at Sebastian. I've treated hundreds of parents. Some are naturals, some struggle, but the ones who matter are the ones who show up. And Sebastian has shown up every single day. And your personal relationship with Mr. Ward? Harper's throat tightened. We dated years ago. It ended. When I saw him again in the hospital, it was complicated. But everything I've done has been in Theo's best interest. Have you observed anything that would suggest Mr. Ward is unfit to care for his son? No. The opposite. I've watched him sacrifice business deals to be at doctor's appointments. I've seen him learn to make bottles at 3 a.m. I've watched him hold his son during vaccinations and cry harder than the baby did. Harper's voice cracked. Theo doesn't need a perfect parent. He needs Sebastian. Patricia's attorney stood for cross-examination. Dr. Ellington, isn't it true that you have romantic feelings for Mr. Ward? Harper's heart stopped. The courtroom was silent. She looked at Sebastian, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Yes. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Patricia smiled coldly. So your testimony is biased? The attorney pressed. No. Harper's voice grew stronger. My testimony is honest. I could lie and say I'm completely objective, but I'm not. I care about Sebastian, I care about Theo. And sometimes caring about people means telling the uncomfortable truth, which is that Sebastian Ward is doing his best, and his best is pretty damn good. Judge Martinez held up a hand. That's enough. Mrs. Brennan's attorney, unless you have additional questions that are actually relevant to Mr. Ward's fitness as a parent, we're moving on. The attorney sat down, looking satisfied anyway. Harper's confession would make headlines. Sebastian's attorney called him to the stand next. He testified about his changes in work schedule, his hands-on parenting, his commitment to Theo. But when Patricia's attorney asked about his relationship with Harper, he didn't hesitate. I love her, Sebastian said simply. I loved her 3 years ago and I love her now. I was too much of a coward to fight for her then, but I'm not anymore. He looked directly at Harper. She makes me want to be a better man, a better father. And yes, I hope she'll be part of my life, part of our lives. But even if she's not, I'm still Theo's father and I'm not giving him up. The courtroom erupted. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Order! We'll take a 15-minute recess while I review the evidence. Harper stood in the courthouse hallway, trying to breathe. Sebastian approached her slowly, like she might bolt. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. Tell them the truth about your feelings. Yes, I did, because you were right. I was hiding, using professional boundaries as an excuse to avoid risking anything real. Harper, let me finish. She turned to face him fully. I'm terrified, Sebastian. Terrified that you'll choose work over us again. Terrified that I'll wake up one day and realize I'm still second place. Terrified that, he kissed her, right there in the courthouse hallway, in front of lawyers and clerks and Patricia's furious glare. His hands cupped her face and the kiss was desperate, apologetic, full of 3 years of regret and longing. When they broke apart, Harper was crying. I quit, Sebastian said. 2 days ago, I stepped down as CEO. Harper stared at him. What? I can't be the father Theo needs while running a company that demands 80-hour weeks. I can't be the man you deserve while choosing board meetings over family dinners. He wiped her tears with his thumbs. So I quit, made Daniel CEO. I'm keeping a board seat consulting part-time, but I'm done sacrificing the people I love for profit margins. Sebastian, you can't. That's your whole life. No, you and Theo are my whole life. The company was just what I hid behind when I was too afraid to admit I wanted more than success. His voice broke. I'm not afraid anymore, Harper. I'm terrified of losing you, but I'm not afraid of fighting for this. For us. The bailiff appeared. Judge is ready. They filed back into the courtroom, hands clasped tightly together. Judge Martinez looked severe. I've reviewed all testimony and evidence. Mrs. Brennan, I understand you're grieving your daughter, but grief doesn't entitle you to custody of a child who has a loving, capable parent. She turned to Sebastian. Mr. Ward, you're still learning. You'll make mistakes, but the evidence shows you're committed, present, and putting your son first. The petition for emergency custody is denied. Patricia stood furious. Your Honor, however, Judge Martinez continued, I'm ordering supervised visitation for Mrs. Brennan, once monthly, arranged through the court. Mr. Ward, your son deserves to know his grandmother. Make it work. The gavel came down. It was over. Sebastian pulled Harper into his arms, and she let herself be held, let herself believe that maybe, finally, they had a real chance. 3 weeks after the hearing, Harper still felt like she was living in someone else's life, a life where Sebastian picked her up after her shifts with Theo in the backseat, babbling happily, a life where she had a drawer at his townhouse, just one, but it felt monumental, a life where she woke up on Sunday mornings to the smell of pancakes and the sound of a baby laughing. It was terrifying how easily she fit. You're overthinking again, Simone said over lunch at the hospital cafeteria. I can literally see the gears turning in your head. Harper poked at her salad. What if it's too good? What if I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop? Then you'll deal with it, together. That's what couples do. Simone stole a tomato from Harper's plate. How's Sebastian adjusting to civilian life? He's surprisingly good at it. He does consulting work from home 3 days a week, spends the other days with Theo. He joined a dad's group at the community center. Harper smiled despite herself. Last week he called me excited because Theo learned to clap. 30 minutes of video footage of a baby clapping. That's adorable and you know it. It is, Harper admitted. It's just, he gave up so much. What if he resents me for it eventually? Did you ask him to quit? No, but then stop borrowing problems from the future. Simone's phone buzzed. I have to run, emergency consult. But Harper, let yourself be happy. You've earned it. After Simone left, Harper sat alone with her thoughts and her half-eaten salad. Her phone buzzed. Sebastian, Theo and I are making dinner tonight. While I'm making dinner, he's throwing pasta on the floor. Want to join us? A photo followed. Theo in his high chair, covered in tomato sauce, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Harper smiled, her chest warming. Harper, I'll bring wine. And a mop. When Harper arrived at the townhouse that evening, she could hear chaos before she even opened the door. Not bad chaos, the kind that came with life and mess and love. Sebastian met her at the door, flower in his hair, wearing an apron that read, Dad bod loading. Theo was strapped to his chest in a baby carrier, both hands buried in what looked like pizza dough. Before you judge, Sebastian said, this is a Jamie Oliver recipe and it's supposedly foolproof. How's that working out? The kitchen looks like a crime scene and I'm pretty sure Theo ate a raw mushroom. But we're having fun. Harper kissed him. Quick and easy, the kind of kiss that came from routine rather than hesitation. I brought reinforcements. She held up a bottle of wine and a bag of ingredients. And a backup plan. You don't trust my cooking? I trust your ambition. I'm less confident about your execution. They worked together in the kitchen, an easy rhythm developing. Sebastian shaped the pizza dough while Harper chopped vegetables. Theo, still strapped to his father's chest, provided commentary and enthusiastic babbles and the occasional shriek of joy. He's getting heavy, Sebastian said, adjusting the carrier. Maria says I should put him down more, let him practice walking. Maria's right, but I also get it. Harper glanced at them. Father and son, both covered in flour, both grinning. Sometimes you just want to hold on. Sebastian met her eyes across the kitchen island. Yeah, sometimes you do. The moment stretched between them, warm and significant. Then Theo grabbed a fistful of cheese and shoved it in his mouth, breaking the spell. No, buddy, that's for the pizza. Sebastian laughed, trying to extract cheese from tiny fingers. They ate dinner at the kitchen table. Pizza that was surprisingly good, salad that Theo refused to touch, and wine that Harper maybe drank too much of. It felt normal, domestic, like something she could build a life around. After dinner, Sebastian gave Theo a bath while Harper cleaned up. She could hear them upstairs. Sebastian singing off-key, Theo splashing, both of them laughing. The sound filled something in her chest she hadn't realized was empty. When Sebastian came back downstairs, Theo was in pajamas, his hair still damp, clutching a stuffed elephant. Someone wants to say goodnight, Sebastian said. Harper took Theo, inhaling that perfect baby smell, lavender soap, and innocence. Good night, sweet boy. Dream about elephants and pizza. Theo laid his head on her shoulder, completely trusting, completely content. Harper felt tears prick her eyes. I'll put him down, Sebastian said softly, taking his son back. Make yourself comfortable. I'll be right back. Harper poured herself more wine and wandered into the living room. The space had changed since she'd first been here. Less sterile, more lived in. Toys scattered near the couch. A photo of Sebastian and Theo on the mantel. A baby monitor on the side table. A life being built in real time. Sebastian returned 20 minutes later, monitor in hand. He went down easy. I think you wore him out with all the airplane noises during dinner. That was strategically deployed distraction so he'd eat his carrots. It worked. You're a genius. Sebastian sat beside her on the couch, close enough that their thighs touched. Thank you. For this. For being here. You don't have to thank me for having dinner with you. I'm not thanking you for dinner. I'm thanking you for staying, for giving us another chance. He took her hand, threading their fingers together, for believing I could change. Harper looked at their joined hands. Did you? Change, I mean. Or did you just rearrange your priorities? Both, maybe. I don't know if people fundamentally change, but I think we can choose what matters. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. 3 years ago, I chose wrong. I won't make that mistake again. Sebastian, Harper set down her wine glass. I need to tell you something. His expression tensed. Okay, I'm scared. All the time. Scared that this is temporary. Scared that you'll wake up and realize you gave up your empire for a woman who doesn't know if she wants kids of her own, who works crazy hours, who... Sebastian pulled her into his lap, cutting off her spiral with a kiss. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. You think I don't know who you are? I've known you for 5 years, Harper. I know you work 70-hour weeks because you can't stand the idea of missing a patient who needs you. I know you cry at sappy commercials but keep a steel spine in trauma situations. I know you're terrified of wanting things because you're afraid they'll disappear. He cupped her face. And I know that you love Theo, even if you're scared to admit it. Even if you're not sure about having your own kids. That's enough. You're enough. Harper's vision blurred with tears. What if I'm not? What if? No more what ifs. We deal with reality as it comes. Together. He wiped her tears with his thumbs. I love you, Harper Ellington. The stubborn, brilliant, complicated, beautiful you. And I'm not going anywhere. I love you too, she whispered. I never stopped. They kissed again. Slower this time. Deeper. Years of longing poured into touch. Sebastian's hand slid into her hair and Harper felt herself melting, letting go of the fear that had kept her protected but alone. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sebastian smiled. Stay tonight, please. Harper nodded, unable to form words. They moved to his bedroom, the space she'd seen but never entered. It was masculine but warm, with a massive bed and windows overlooking the city. The baby monitor sat on the nightstand, Theo's soft breathing a soundtrack to everything that followed. They made love slowly, relearning each other, erasing 3 years of absence with every touch. And afterward, lying in Sebastian's arms with the city lights filtering through the windows, Harper finally let herself believe this wasn't temporary. This was real. Harper woke at 3 a.m. to crying. Not Theo's crying. Sebastian's phone ringing. He answered groggily. Hello? Yes, this is he. What? He sat up abruptly, suddenly wide awake. When? Is he okay? I'm on my way. Harper sat up, heart racing. What's wrong? That was the hospital. Patricia was in a car accident. She's in critical condition. Sebastian was already getting dressed, his movements sharp with adrenaline. I have to go. Sebastian, I know she tried to take Theo, but she's still his grandmother, still Amelia's mother. I can't just... He ran his hands through his hair. I have to go. Harper got out of bed, reaching for her clothes. Then we'll go together. Sebastian looked at her, something breaking open in his expression. You don't have to. Yes, I do. That's what this means, right? Being together. We show up, even when it's hard. She kissed him quickly. Get Theo ready. I'll call Maria and ask her to meet us at the hospital. As they rushed to get dressed, to wake a confused and cranky Theo, to navigate the dark city streets toward the hospital, Harper realized something. She wasn't scared anymore. She was home. The emergency room was organized chaos when they arrived. Harper immediately shifted into doctor mode, while Sebastian held Theo close, trying to shield him from the fluorescent lights and urgent voices. Maria met them near the registration desk, still in her nightgown under a winter coat. Mr. Ward, I came as fast as I could. Give me the baby. You need to focus on Mrs. Brennan. But Sebastian hesitated, looking at Harper. She squeezed his arm. Go. We'll be in the waiting room. He nodded and disappeared with a nurse toward the trauma bay. Harper took Theo from Maria, and the baby, sensing the tension, buried his face in her neck. Is Mrs. Brennan going to be okay? Maria asked quietly. I don't know. I'll see what I can find out. Harper approached the nurse's station, recognizing the charge nurse on duty. Lisa, the trauma that just came in, Patricia Brennan. What's her status? Lisa checked her computer, then lowered her voice. Multi-vehicle collision, broken ribs, collapsed lung, internal bleeding. They're taking her to surgery in 10 minutes. Dr. Chen is operating. She paused. You know her? It's complicated. Isn't it always? Lisa's expression softened. The family can wait in the surgical waiting room on the 4th floor. Harper nodded her thanks and returned to Maria. Together they took the elevator up, Theo growing heavier in Harper's arms as he finally fell back asleep despite the chaos. The surgical waiting room was nearly empty at this hour. Just them, a man pacing near the windows, and a woman knitting in the corner. Harper sat with Theo sleeping on her chest, Maria beside her, both of them existing in that strange liminal space hospitals created. 30 minutes later, Sebastian emerged from the restricted area, looking destroyed. They're operating now. 6 hours, maybe more. They said it's... His voice cracked. They said it's bad. Harper stood carefully, keeping Theo asleep, and guided Sebastian to a chair. He sat heavily, dropping his head into his hands. This is my fault, he said. She was upset, driving angry, and I... No. Harper's voice was firm. You didn't cause this. The driver who ran the red light caused this. Patricia's choices caused this. You are not responsible for other people's actions, Sebastian. Maria stood. I'll get coffee. Mr. Ward, you look like you need it. When Maria left, Harper sat beside Sebastian, adjusting Theo so the baby was cradled between them. Sebastian reached out, his hand resting on his son's back. I was so angry at her, he whispered, for threatening to take Theo, for ambushing you, for turning Amelia's death into ammunition, and now she might die. And all I can think is, what if those are the last memories Theo has of his grandmother? Lawyers and courtrooms and hate? Then we make new ones. If she survives, we give her chances to be better, to know Theo as he grows. Harper met his eyes. You taught me that. About second chances. Sebastian's laugh was hollow. I'm not sure I deserve the credit. You stepped down from your company. You chose your son over your empire. You chose me over safety. Harper shifted Theo slightly. That's not nothing, Sebastian. That's everything. He looked at her then. Really looked. And Harper saw the moment something shifted in him. Not acceptance, but maybe the beginning of it. The understanding that he couldn't control everything, couldn't fix everything, could only show up and try. I don't know what I'd do without you, he said softly. Good thing you don't have to find out. Maria returned with coffee and paper cups. They settled in for the long wait, taking turns holding Theo, checking the surgery board, existing in that suspended reality where time moved differently. At sunrise, Dr. Chen emerged, still in surgical scrubs, looking exhausted. Sebastian stood immediately. She made it through surgery, Dr. Chen said. We repaired the internal bleeding, reinflated her lung, stabilized her ribs, but she's critical. The next 48 hours will tell us more. Can I see her? Sebastian asked. ICU only allows immediate family. Are you her son-in-law? Was her son-in-law. Sebastian struggled for the right words. I'm the father of her grandson. I'm all she has. Dr. Chen nodded. Room 412, but only for a few minutes. She needs rest. Sebastian stood outside Patricia's ICU room, staring through the glass. She looked small in the hospital bed, nothing like the formidable woman who'd stormed into his home. Machines beeped around her, tubes running everywhere, her platinum hair matted and dull. Harper appeared beside him alone. Maria took Theo to get breakfast. You okay? I don't know what to feel. Then don't feel anything yet. Just be present. Sebastian pushed open the door and entered. Harper started to wait outside, but he turned back. Come with me, please. They approached the bed together. Patricia's eyes were closed, her breathing assisted by oxygen. A monitor tracked her heart rate. Steady, but weak. Sebastian pulled up a chair, and Harper stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder. They sat in silence, watching this woman who'd caused so much pain, who was also just a mother grieving her daughter. I'm sorry, Sebastian said quietly, not sure if Patricia could hear him. I'm sorry I couldn't love Amelia the way she deserved. I tried. God knows I tried. But my heart was somewhere else, and that wasn't fair to her. His voice broke. She gave me Theo. She gave me the greatest gift, and I couldn't give her what she needed in return. So I'm sorry. For all of it. Harper's grip on his shoulder tightened. Patricia's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first. Then she saw Sebastian, and something shifted in her expression. Not anger, but exhaustion, pain, resignation. Sebastian, she whispered, her voice barely audible through the oxygen mask. Don't talk. You need to rest. But Patricia shook her head weakly. Need to say. She struggled, each word an effort. I was wrong. At the hearing. You're good, father. Sebastian leaned forward. Patricia, let me finish. She coughed, wincing. Amelia knew. She knew you didn't love her, but she loved that baby. Said he'd have your intelligence, your strength. Said that was enough. Tears slid down Patricia's temples. I was angry. At you. At her. At the universe. Took it out on you. Wrong. You were grieving, Sebastian said gently. You still are. Doesn't excuse. Patricia's eyes found Harper. You're the doctor. From the courtroom. Harper stepped forward. Yes. You love him. It wasn't a question. Harper nodded anyway. I do. Good. Patricia's hand moved weakly toward Sebastian. He took it, holding it gently. Don't waste it. Don't waste time. Life is too short. Too fragile. I won't, Sebastian promised. And Patricia, Theo should know you. Not the courtroom version. The real you. Amelia's mother. Will you let us try? Patricia's eyes closed, fresh tears streaming. I'd like that. They sat with her until she fell asleep, exhausted from the effort of speaking. In the hallway, Sebastian pulled Harper into his arms, holding her tight. She could have died hating me, he said into her hair. Hating us. But she didn't. She chose forgiveness instead. Harper pulled back to look at him. That's powerful, Sebastian. That's grace. I don't deserve it. Maybe. But you're getting it anyway. That's how grace works. 2 days later, Patricia was moved from ICU to a regular room, stable and improving. The doctor said she'd need months of recovery, possibly physical therapy. Sebastian arranged for the best care, visited every day with Theo, let Patricia hold her grandson, while Harper supervised from the doorway. On the third visit, Patricia looked at Harper and said, "Thank you for taking care of them both." "It's not a burden," Harper replied honestly. "It's a privilege." Patricia smiled, small but genuine. "Amelia would have liked you, would have appreciated how you love him, fiercely but without trying to own him." The words settled into Harper's chest, unexpected and healing. That evening, back at the townhouse, Harper stood in the nursery doorway watching Sebastian put Theo to bed. He sang softly, something about stars and dreams. And Theo's eyes drooped, fighting sleep but losing the battle. When Sebastian finally emerged, he found Harper still standing there. "What are you thinking?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I'm thinking about the future, about what we're building here." "And?" Harper turned in his arms, looking up at him. "And I'm thinking I want to build it intentionally, not just fall into it. I want to choose it. Every day." Sebastian's expression softened. "What does that mean?" Harper took a breath, terrified and certain all at once. "It means I want to move in, officially, not just a drawer and a toothbrush, all of me, here, with you and Theo." Sebastian stared at her, speechless. Then he kissed her, deep and grateful and full of promise. "Yes," he breathed against her lips. "God, yes. I've been waiting for you to be ready. I'm ready, finally." Harper smiled. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't burn down the kitchen trying to recreate Jamie Oliver recipes." Sebastian laughed, the sound filling the hallway, filling the house, filling all the empty spaces that had existed for too long. "I love you," he said. "So much it terrifies me." "Good," Harper replied. "That means it's real." Downstairs the doorbell rang. Sebastian groaned. "Who shows up at 9 p.m.? They went down together and Sebastian opened the door to find a delivery man with an enormous bouquet of flowers and an envelope. Delivery for Sebastian Ward. Sebastian tipped him and brought everything inside. The envelope had Patricia's handwriting, shaky but recognizable. He opened it. Inside was a note and a photograph. The note read, "This was taken 3 days before she died. She made me promise to give it to you when the time was right. I think now is right. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Patricia." The photograph showed Amelia in the hospital, holding newborn Theo, smiling at the camera with exhausted joy. On the back, in her handwriting, "His name is Theodore, after my grandfather. Tell him about the good parts. Tell him I loved him. Tell him his father is the strongest person I know, even if he doesn't believe it." Sebastian's hands shook. Harper read over his shoulder, her own eyes filling with tears. "She knew," Sebastian whispered. "She knew she might not make it, and she still wanted me to have this." Harper held him as he cried. For Amelia, for Theo, for all the complicated love and loss that had brought them to this moment. When he finally pulled away, Sebastian looked at the photograph again. "I'll put this in his room so he knows, so he always knows she loved him. And we'll tell him," Harper said. "All of it. The good parts and the hard parts. The truth." Sebastian nodded. The truth. They stood together in the entryway of their home, because it was their home now officially, and Harper realized something profound. This was what healing looked like. Not the absence of scars, but the choice to build something beautiful anyway. 6 months later, Harper's life looked nothing like she'd imagined and everything like she'd secretly hoped for. The townhouse was fully theirs now, decorated with her touches alongside Sebastian's. Throw pillows she'd chosen, framed photos of her family on the mantel, her medical journals scattered on the coffee table. Theo was walking everywhere, babbling in sentences only he understood, and calling her mama more often than not. Harper had stopped correcting him. Spring had arrived in New York with sudden force, trees blooming overnight, the city shedding its winter gray for vibrant green. Harper stood in the kitchen on a Saturday morning, making pancakes while Theo sat in his high chair, systematically destroying a banana. Sebastian came down the stairs, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him during their first relationship. Consulting work suited him, enough challenge to stay engaged, enough flexibility to be present. "Morning," he said, kissing her temple before dropping a kiss on Theo's messy head. "Smells good. It's box mix, don't give me too much credit. I give you credit for everything." He poured coffee for both of them, moving around the kitchen with the ease of routine. "So, I was thinking, dangerous activity." Sebastian laughed. "Patricia's been out of rehab for 3 weeks now, she's doing really well. And she mentioned wanting to have Theo for a full day soon. Not just a few hours?" Harper flipped a pancake. "How do you feel about that?" "Terrified. But also, she's earned it. She's been to therapy, worked through a lot of her grief, and Theo loves her." He paused. "I thought maybe we could use the day. Just us." Harper turned to look at him. "Just us? When's the last time we had a whole day? No hospital shifts, no baby, no interruptions." Sebastian's eyes held something she couldn't quite read. "I want to take you somewhere. Somewhere mysterious. Very mysterious. Pack a bag. comfortable clothes. And trust me, Harper studied him, seeing the nervous energy beneath his casual demeanor. Okay, I trust you. The following Saturday, Patricia arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, looking healthy and genuine in a way Harper had never seen during their contentious beginning. She hugged Theo tight, then looked at Harper and Sebastian with knowing eyes. Go. Enjoy yourselves. We'll be fine. She shooed them toward the door. And take your time. I've got this. Sebastian had packed the car already, Harper's overnight bag mysterious beside his own. They drove north out of the city, leaving behind traffic and skyscrapers for rolling hills and small towns. Are you going to tell me where we're going? Harper asked as they crossed into Connecticut. Nope. Not even a hint? Absolutely not. But Sebastian was smiling, one hand on the wheel, the other holding hers across the console. They drove for 2 hours listening to music and talking about nothing important, the kind of conversation that was really about everything. Finally, Sebastian turned onto a narrow road that wound through dense forest, then opened onto a clearing. Harper's breath caught. A small lake stretched before them, perfectly still, reflecting the sky like glass. A cabin sat near the shore, rustic but beautiful, with a wide porch and windows that faced the water. Wildflowers bloomed in chaotic patches around the property. Sebastian, I bought it 3 months ago, he said quietly. I wanted us to have a place, somewhere away from the city, somewhere Theo could grow up with dirt under his fingernails and stars overhead. He looked at her. Somewhere we could just be. Harper got out of the car slowly, walking toward the cabin like she was in a dream. Sebastian followed, unlocking the door and letting her explore. Inside was everything she hadn't known she wanted. Exposed beams and a stone fireplace, a kitchen with farmhouse windows, bedrooms with quilts and wooden furniture. It was warm and lived in, despite being new, like it had been waiting for them. There's a dock, Sebastian said, leading her through the back door, and a canoe. The neighbors are half a mile away. It's quiet, peaceful. Harper turned to him, tears in her eyes. You bought us a cabin. I bought us a future, a place where we can bring Theo when the city gets too loud, where we can have Christmases and summer barbecues and all the normal things I never thought I wanted. He took her hands, where we can build the life we both deserve. Harper kissed him, tasting salt from her own tears, feeling the solid warmth of him against her. I love it. I love you. I love... Wait, Sebastian said, pulling back. There's more. He led her down to the dock, where a picnic basket sat waiting. They settled on the weathered wood, legs dangling over the water, and Sebastian unpacked lunch. Sandwiches from her favorite deli, strawberries, champagne in plastic cups because glass near water was impractical. They ate in comfortable silence, watching dragonflies skim the lake's surface. Harper felt more at peace than she had in years. Can I tell you something? Sebastian said eventually. Always. 3 years ago, when you left, I convinced myself it was for the best, that I wasn't built for relationships, that success was enough. He stared at the water, and then Theo came, and Amelia died, and suddenly success meant nothing. I had everything I thought I wanted, and I'd never felt more empty. He turned to face her. And then you walked back into my life, and I remembered what it felt like to want something more than achievement, to want connection, love, partnership. Sebastian, I'm not finished. He smiled nervously. You've given me more than second chances. You've given me a reason to be better, to show up, to choose love over fear every single day. He reached into his pocket, and Harper's heart stopped. And I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you? He opened a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a single diamond that caught the sunlight and threw rainbows across the dock. Harper Ellington, will you marry me? Harper stared at the ring, at Sebastian's hopeful face, at the life spreading out before them like the lake, vast and beautiful and full of possibility. Yes, she breathed. Yes, absolutely, yes. Sebastian slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and then they were kissing and laughing and crying all at once. He pulled her into his lap and she wrapped her arms around his neck, and they stayed like that for a long time. Two people who'd found their way back to each other against all odds. I can't believe you bought a cabin to propose, Harper said eventually, resting her forehead against his. I wanted it to be perfect. You deserve perfect. I don't need perfect. I just need you. She looked at the ring on her finger, still not quite believing. And maybe Theo in a tiny tuxedo at the wedding. Sebastian laughed. Already ordered. He's going to be the best man in history. They spent the rest of the day at the cabin, christening the bedroom, napping on the porch swing, making dinner together in the small kitchen. As the sun set, they built a fire in the fireplace and curled up on the couch, planning a future that felt suddenly, beautifully real. Small wedding or big? Sebastian asked, playing with her hair. Small, just family and close friends. Simone will cry through the entire ceremony. Maria will too, and Patricia will probably try to organize everything. Harper laughed. Let her. She's good at it, and it'll make her feel included. When? Sebastian's voice was soft. I know people usually wait, but Soon, Harper said firmly. I don't want to wait. We've already lost 3 years. Let's not waste any more time. Soon, Sebastian agreed, kissing her temple. How does 3 months sound? Perfect. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire, feeling the weight of commitment settle around them. Not heavy, but grounding. This was what Harper had been afraid of. Not the love, but the permanence. The acknowledgement that this was it, this was home, this was forever. And now that she'd said yes, she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. They drove back to the city Sunday evening, both glowing with the kind of happiness that made strangers smile. Patricia met them at the door with Theo, who shrieked, Mama! Dada! And launched himself into their arms. He was perfect, Patricia said, then noticed Harper's hand. Her eyes widened. Oh my goodness. He did it. He actually did it. You knew? Harper asked. He asked my blessing 3 weeks ago. Patricia's smile was genuine, warm. I told him if he didn't marry you, I'd disown him. She hugged Harper carefully. Welcome to the family, dear. Officially. After Patricia left, they put Theo to bed together. A routine so familiar it felt like choreography. Sebastian read the bedtime story while Harper dimmed the lights. Theo fell asleep halfway through, his elephant clutched tight. He's getting so big, Harper whispered, adjusting his blanket. He'll be 1 next month. Sebastian pulled her close. Thank you. For what? For saying yes. For choosing this. For choosing us. He kissed her softly. I know it's not easy. Marrying into instant parenthood, dealing with complicated family dynamics, balancing your career with our chaos. Harper touched his face. None of that matters. What matters is this. Right here. You, me, Theo. That's all I need. They stood in the nursery doorway watching their son sleep, and Harper felt the last piece of her heart click into place. This was love. Not the desperate, all-consuming kind from their first relationship, but something steadier, deeper, built on choice and commitment and showing up even when it was hard. This was forever, and Harper was ready. 3 years later, the late afternoon sun filtered through the towering oak trees at the lakeside cabin, casting dancing shadows across the lawn where white chairs sat in neat rows. Harper stood in the master bedroom adjusting her simple ivory dress, tea-length with delicate lace sleeves, while Simone fussed with her hair. Stop fidgeting, Simone commanded, securing the final pin in Harper's loose updo. You're going to mess up my masterpiece. I'm not fidgeting, I'm fidgeting. Simone stepped back, admiring her work. But you're allowed. It's your wedding day. Again, Harper smiled at her reflection. 3 years ago, she'd married Sebastian in a small ceremony at City Hall. Intimate, perfect, exactly what they'd needed. Just family, close friends, and Theo as their very serious 1-year-old ring-bearer who'd eaten the rings and caused a minor panic before Sebastian found them in his diaper bag. But this was different. This was a vow renewal, a celebration of everything they'd survived and built together, a chance to say their promises again with more certainty, more history, more love. How do I look? Harper asked, like a woman who's about to make a billionaire cry in front of 50 people. Simone handed her the bouquet of wildflowers picked fresh that morning. Ready? Harper took a deep breath. More than ready. Downstairs, Sebastian stood on the back porch with his best man, Daniel, his former COO and current CEO, who'd become one of his closest friends during the transition. Theo, now 4 years old, sat on the porch steps in his miniature suit, carefully examining a beetle. Buddy, you're supposed to be getting ready to walk with Mama, Sebastian said. I am ready. But the beetle needs help. He's lost. Theo looked up with those serious gray eyes that were pure Sebastian. Can we keep him? Absolutely not. But Mama said we should help things that are lost. Sebastian crouched down beside his son. She's right. But helping doesn't always mean keeping. Sometimes it means putting them back where they belong. He gently moved the beetle to the garden. See? Now he can find his family. Theo considered this. Like how you and Mama found each other again. Sebastian's chest tightened. Exactly like that. And then you found me? No, buddy, I had you first. But Mama chose us. Both of us. That's even better. Theo grinned and threw his arms around Sebastian's neck. I love Mama. Me too, kid. Me too. Maria appeared in the doorway, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. They're ready to start. Theo, come with me. You remember what to do? Walk slow, give Mama the flowers, don't eat anything that's not food. Theo recited his instructions perfectly, then looked at Sebastian. Papa, you look nervous. I am nervous. Why? You already married Mama once. Because every time I see her, I fall in love all over again, and that's always a little bit scary. Theo nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense, then took Maria's hand and headed inside. Daniel clapped Sebastian on the shoulder. You good? Yeah, I'm good. Sebastian straightened his tie. Navy blue, Harper's favorite color on him. Better than good. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The ceremony was simple and perfect. Harper walked down the makeshift aisle on her father's arm, her mother crying in the front row beside Patricia, who looked healthier and happier than Sebastian had ever seen her. Simone stood as maid of honor, already tearing up. Theo sat in the front row between Maria and Harper's younger sister Lily, swinging his legs and waving at everyone. When Harper reached the altar, really just a wooden arch decorated with wildflowers, Sebastian forgot how to breathe. She was radiant, glowing with happiness, looking at him like he was her whole world, because he was, and she was his. The officiant began, but Sebastian barely heard the words. He was too focused on Harper's face, on the way her hand trembled slightly in his, on the tears gathering in her eyes that matched his own. Sebastian and Harper have written their own vows, the officiant said. Sebastian, you may begin. Sebastian took a breath, pulling a folded paper from his pocket, then changing his mind and speaking from his heart instead. 3 years ago, I stood in a courthouse and promised to love you for the rest of my life. I meant it then. I mean it even more now. His voice was steady despite the emotion. You walked into my life twice. Once when I was too scared to deserve you, and once when I was desperate enough to fight for you. Both times, you changed everything. Harper's tears spilled over. You taught me that success isn't measured in profit margins or Forbes covers. It's measured in Saturday morning pancakes and bedtime stories, and the way Theo's face lights up when you walk through the door. It's measured in moments like this, standing here surrounded by people we love, choosing each other again. He squeezed her hands. So today, I promise you the same things I promised 3 years ago, but with more certainty. I promise to show up, to choose you, to put us first always, to be the man you believed I could be even when I didn't believe it myself. He paused, his voice breaking slightly. And I promise to never stop falling in love with you. Every single day for the rest of our lives. Harper was fully crying now, not even trying to hide it. She wiped her eyes, took a breath, and began her own vows. Sebastian Ward, you are the most infuriating, complicated, brilliant man I've ever known. Laughter rippled through the crowd. 3 years ago, I married you terrified that you'd break my heart again. Today, I stand here knowing that heartbreak is always a risk. But loving you is worth it. She looked at Theo, then back at Sebastian. You gave me a family I didn't know I needed. A son who isn't mine by blood but is mine in every way that matters. A home that feels like peace. A love that feels like coming home after a long shift and knowing exactly where I belong. Her voice grew stronger. So I promise you this. I will choose you on the good days and the hard days. I will show up when you're strong and when you're falling apart. I will love Theo as fiercely as if I'd carried him myself, and I will never ever let you forget that you are enough, not because of what you build or achieve, but because of who you are. She smiled through her tears. You are my person, Sebastian. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. Always. The officiant didn't even get to the you may kiss part, before Sebastian was pulling Harper into his arms, kissing her like they were the only two people in the world. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Theo shouted, Mama, Papa, at the top of his lungs. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Sebastian whispered against her lips, I love you, Harper Ward. I love you too, forever. The reception was everything a lakeside celebration should be. String lights in the trees, a band playing on the makeshift dance floor, tables laden with food, and laughter echoing across the water. Harper danced with her father, then with Theo, who stood on her feet and let her guide him in circles while giggling uncontrollably. Sebastian danced with Patricia, who told him quietly that Amelia would be proud of the man he'd become. the father he was, the husband he'd learned to be. He cried on her shoulder, and she held him, and something old and painful finally healed between them. As the sun set, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, Sebastian found Harper at the edge of the dock, looking out over the water. "Escaping your own party?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Just taking a moment. It's beautiful, isn't it?" "It really is." He kissed her temple. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me another chance. For choosing this life with me. For being exactly who you are." He turned her to face him. "For making me believe in love again when I thought I'd lost the ability to feel it." Harper touched his face, her wedding ring catching the dying light. "You know what I realized today?" "What's that?" "We were never really broken. We were just unfinished. And now," she gestured to the cabin, the celebration, their life spread out around them. "Now we're exactly what we were always meant to be. Complete," Sebastian said softly. "No, whole." Harper smiled. "There's a difference. Complete suggests we were missing pieces. Whole means we're enough just as we are." Before Sebastian could respond, Theo came running down the dock, still wearing his suit jacket but having lost his shoes somewhere. "Mama, Papa, they're cutting the cake. You have to come." He grabbed both their hands, tugging insistently. "And Miss Simone said I can have 2 pieces if you say it's okay." Harper laughed. "1 piece, but with extra frosting." "Deal." Theo dragged them back toward the party, chattering about cake and dancing and how Maria let him try champagne. "It was gross, Papa. Why do grown-ups like that?" As they walked back together, hands linked, Theo between them, Harper looked over his head at Sebastian. He met her eyes and smiled, and in that moment, everything they'd survived suddenly made sense. The heartbreak, the fear, the years apart, all of it had led them here, to this perfect, imperfect, chaotic, beautiful life, to home. Later that night, after the guests had left and Theo had fallen asleep in his room upstairs, Sebastian and Harper sat on the dock again, feet dangling in the cool water, watching the stars reflect on the lake's surface. "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this?" Harper asked quietly. "Every day." Sebastian pulled her closer. "And every day, I'm grateful we didn't." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that came from years of knowing each other, of weathering storms together, of choosing love over fear again and again. "Sebastian?" Harper said eventually. "I'm pregnant." Sebastian froze, then sat up straight, turning to look at her with wide eyes. "What?" Harper smiled, nervous and excited, and terrified all at once. "I found out yesterday. I wanted to wait until after the ceremony to tell you. Didn't want to steal focus from today, but..." Sebastian kissed her, deep and long and full of joy. When he pulled back, he was crying again. "We're having a baby? We're having a baby." Harper laughed through her own tears. "I know we said we were happy with just Theo, and if you're not ready, we can..." "I'm ready. God, Harper, I'm so ready." He placed his hand on her still flat stomach, reverent and awed. "A baby. Our baby. Theo's going to lose his mind. He's been asking for a sibling since he learned what siblings were. He's going to be the best big brother." Sebastian pulled her into his lap, holding her close. "Thank you. For all of it. For this life. For this family. For choosing me." Harper rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, home. "Thank you for becoming someone worth choosing." They stayed like that until the stars multiplied overhead, until the night grew cool and they had to go inside. But before they did, Harper took one last look at the lake, at the cabin, at the life they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. And she smiled, knowing that whatever came next, babies and chaos and all the beautiful mess of life, they would face it together, because that's what love was. Not the absence of storms, but the promise to weather them side by side, always. Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever gotten a second chance at love? Would you have been brave enough to choose it? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.